Joining me now, North Dakota Senator Kevin Cramer. Senator, it clocks in at nearly 3,000 pages. I assume your office is going through this as well as they can. Anything stand out to you immediately as a red flag?
No, Charles, not at this point. We are going through it line by line, of course, but remembering too that I'm the ranking member on the Environment and Public Works Subcommittee for Transportation and Infrastructure. So the base of the bill has largely passed through a committee process. It passed unanimously a couple of months ago. And there are other things, water provision, other provisions that have actually been legislative language for a long time. So we're really at this point, we're doing exactly what you talked about, looking for the red flags. Where are the areas of concern? Where might there be mischief? Does the written language actually coincide with the themes that were passed when we voted to proceed to the measure? And so there are probably some offices that have a little less intimate knowledge than ours, but it does allow us to focus on the specific pages of the 3,000 that are the most concerning. So we'll be looking for things like on the permitting reform side, making sure that things like the one federal decision provisions that we put in the EPW bill are still in there, making sure that categorical exclusions for permitting, that the permitting council is still a major part of it. And because little money goes a lot further when you don't have to take 10 years to do a 2-year job. And those are things that we're looking at, as well as the formula things to make sure that the miles of highway, for example, are accounted for, as well as the population of a particular state. You might understand that. North Dakota has a lot of highways and few people. So there are just a lot of those nuanced things that we're looking very closely at.
I've been on those North Dakota highways, believe me, they better cover them. All right. Now, to me, though, it really seems like this all sets up for perhaps a quick passage of the $3.5 trillion spending bill. Can you handicap whether you think that gets through? I saw a lot of folks on the left complaining about this infrastructure bill, and I saw a lot of, schematics saying that they feel like they lost out on that. What do you think in terms of this making it through, and what are your Democratic colleagues telling you with respect to the impact of inflation that all the spending has already had?
So really important point, because the nice thing about infrastructure, Charles, and this bill in particular, because it really does stick to traditional infrastructure, to the degree broadband is traditional, roads, bridges, obviously, waterways, rail, the stuff that moves our economy. That actually pushes against inflation because, first of all, it does pay for an asset, a physical asset, in many cases that'll last decades, hopefully. That's the plan. It pays people to work as opposed to not work.
I'm more concerned now, sir, Senator Cramer. What about though the $3.5 trillion spending bill? Because it feels like the whole game plan is, hey, pass this, prove we're bipartisan, and then muscle the other one through.
Sure. Well, whether we pass this one or don't pass this one, they're going to muscle the other one through. The difference being, if we pass a $1 trillion package that actually has spending constraints, that actually has infrastructure as its focus and the profitability of the private sector, I think you've taken a lot of the low-hanging fruit out of a human infrastructure bill that I think makes it more difficult, frankly, for them to pass it. And they're going to do it.
I got you.
If we didn't do this one, I think it's not just $1 trillion, it's probably $2 trillion they add to the $3.5 trillion, and they do whatever they want without any permitting reforms.
Less than a minute to go. Is the debt ceiling, where's the debt ceiling thing?
So right now, I don't know a single Republican that would be supportive of a clean raising of the debt ceiling. Now, I haven't surveyed all of them, but we're looking at conditions that we would want to put on the raising of the debt ceiling, fundamental things that get to the heart of raising the debt ceiling and spending, things like raising the threshold for a vote if you continue to add to the debt once the debt is greater than or equal to productivity, as an example. So we need to see some structural changes. Absent that, I just don't know how we would ever vote to raise the debt ceiling, and I would not be at all surprised if Democrats would try to stuff that into their budget reconciliation spending package that only requires a simple majority to pass. But we have to have a serious discussion about the debt and the deficit on both sides of the ledger, both the discretionary and the mandatory side of the ledger. A lot of us are prepared to do that. I'm part of the Trust. I'm on the Trust Act with Mitt Romney, which gets to the foundation, I think, of the mandatory spending side. It's a very unpopular side of the politically to talk about, but as you know, these trust funds are coming up on insolvency, not in a long ways, but within this decade.
it just always feels like, I mean, there's a lot of bluster. Occasionally the government shuts down for a day or two, but it's always the ultimate game of chicken. And then once again, they hike it, and I know it's been like 110, 111 times. Maybe at some point they can get a fixed number there. Senator, I really appreciate it. You gave us some important details that I was not aware of, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Always my pleasure. Thanks, Charles.